This is the Lenovo T16, a 16-inch laptop. I haven't had a Lenovo since the W510, which was my first laptop ever. And this was a beast. It still works after 15 years. This one feels really nice, solid. I'm gonna set this up for software development, but as I do software development. So this is kind of personal. There's a lot of different kinds of software developers out there doing different kinds of things. I do mostly mobile and web development, and now with AI growing, I'm doing quite a bit of Python as well. So I'll set up some essential tools here, as well as WSL, Windows Subsystem for Linux, so we can run Linux right on here, because I will be installing some tools that I think work a little bit better in Linux than in Windows. Yet we're still in Windows world. We're gonna stay that way for this video, yet have the option to switch between Windows and Linux inside Windows. That's the best explanation for now. Keep watching and you'll see what I mean. I did leave chapter markers down below if you want to skip around to the section that interests you the most. I still prefer using a mouse rather than a trackpad, and it's nice that this laptop has USB-A ports. Nice. Now, the first thing I did after turning this thing on and going through that gruesome installation process that Windows makes you go through is I checked for updates, and if there were any, I installed all the updates, did a bunch of reboots. You know, that's the song and dance that we have to do with Windows these days. I just did it, and now there's another one. All right, after this, we're gonna begin. Hey, that was quick. I'm up to date. Now, see all this stuff over here. First thing, I'm gonna debloat Windows. This is all coming from OneDrive. I don't want that in there, but it's all automatically coming from it. So that's where I'm gonna start. I'm gonna go to settings, and I'm gonna go to apps, installed apps, and remove anything here that I don't need, starting with OneDrive. Look at that, it's taking up 457 megabytes. I don't need it, I don't use it, and it automatically turns on and starts installing and downloading my files onto the desktop, which is super annoying. Microsoft OneNote, don't need it. I'm just gonna uninstall it, sorry. If you need some of these things, go ahead and keep them, but I don't, so I'm gonna uninstall all the stuff that's pre-installed that I don't need. It's extra bloat, who needs it? I wish there was a version of Windows where you can add things that you want instead of removing things that you don't want. I would prefer that version of Windows. Microsoft Bing, can't really uninstall that one, don't need it. To Do, I will uninstall that, don't need that. I'm just gonna leave Outlook because a lot of people use that. I don't, but that's okay. Xbox, I'm gonna uninstall that. If I want an Xbox, I'll get an Xbox, you know what I mean? Xbox Live, I'll also uninstall that one. Now let's take a look at Task Manager. There's several different ways of doing it. You can go to Search and then Task Manager, or I like to right click on the toolbar here and go to Task Manager that way. I'm also gonna go ahead and right click on that once it pops up and say Pin to Taskbar, because I want Task Manager to pretty much always be available and ready and within one click. I don't want to click around for it. Checking, you know, memory, CPU usage, processes. Let's go over here to this one, which is called Startup Apps. And you can see that there's a few different startup apps here. I don't want these startup apps. So I'm gonna go back to settings and then apps, startup, and I'm gonna turn all these off because I wanna start the apps when I wanna start the apps, not when the system wants to start the apps. Especially Microsoft Edge. If you take a look at that, it says high impact on startup. So it's gonna slow down your startup time. Let's take that off. Security notification icon, you can leave that on, but I'm just gonna disable that as well. Next, let's go to System. Since we're in Settings, Notifications, I like to disable these because I don't want any extra stuff popping up that I don't want. But, you know, you can choose your own. I'm just going to start off disabled. Do Not Disturb is on. Let's go back to System, Power and Battery. So here, the power mode is set to balanced, but I want to set that to best performance. Now, of course, that's going to use more battery. Decide yourself what you want to do. This is already a efficient CPU here, so it's not going to have that much effect. Plus, I need only about 4 to 6 hours a day for myself when I'm using a machine like this. Plugged in, I'm going to set that to best performance. On battery, I'm going to set that to best performance as well. And then energy saver, I'm going to leave that on to turn on at 30%. This icon will let me know if I'm about to die or if I have 30% left. So that should give me enough of an indication that I should probably go and plug in. Pop open screen, sleep, and hibernate timeouts. Again, this is very personal, but I don't like my screen just turning off on me, so I'm gonna set that to never. Make my device sleep after never as well. And when I'm on battery, I'm gonna set that to never and never. Yes, I'm very risky like that. Hey, if I wanna shut this thing down, I would just close the lid. Again, this puts more responsibility on me instead of the computer, and I feel like I'm responsible enough to be able to handle when I want to turn it off. Thank you very much. Let's go to power plan. Now, this is inside the old control panel, and basically some of the features and options are turned on and off in the new UI, which is what we just did, and the old UI, which is the old control panel UI right here. One of those is power plan. Right now it's set to balanced, believe it or not, even though in the new UI, under system, under power and battery, we set the power mode to best performance. Well, power mode and power plan are two different things in Windows world. Yeah, it's a little confusing. The power plan is set to balanced. And if you want to go and change advanced settings besides on battery and plugged in, turn off display, put the computer to sleep, we already did all that. But if you want more control, you would go to change advanced power settings, and then you can dig in here and change a bunch of these settings here. But there's already pre-cooked power plans available for you. But if you go over here and try to change it, there is no other option here. There's just balanced. Weird. However, there is another hidden option. I used to turn it on all the time. It could help you out a little bit, get more performance out of your system, but it's not super necessary. High performance power plan is suitable for enterprise workstation type systems and definitely ignores some energy saving features to prioritize performance. So if you do that, you might want to forget about your battery lasting too long. I'll show you how to do it anyway. Open up your terminal, but instead of just opening it up, you want to hold down Shift, right click on it and say run as administrator. And yes, now you have all the power. And then you want to run this command, powercfg -duplicatescheme, and then this weird GUID. Yeah, that's how we do it. Enter. And then it says power scheme GUID high performance. And then after that, you want to run this command, powercfg/s means set scheme min. Boom. Okay, so now if we go back to our power plan, oh, look at that. We now have high performance selected instead of balanced, the hidden secret power plan. Okay, now you know the secrets. Now you have the power. All right, I'm done with those jokes. Let's move on. By the way, if you need this command, I'll paste it down below in the description.
So these days, I'm always flipping between models. GPT for research, Claude for coding, Nano Banana for image generation, VO, Kling, and Runway for video, 6 tabs, 6 bills, and counting. Enter Chat LLM Teams. One dashboard houses every top LLM, and Route LLM picks the right one. GPT Mini for ultra-fast answers, Claude Sonnet for coding, Gemini Pro for massive context. They recently added Gemini 3 and GPT 5.1 the moment they dropped. Create professional presentations with graphs, charts, and deep research detailed content. Need human-sounding copy? Humanize rewrites text to defeat AI detectors. Need visuals? Pick frontier or open source models. Nano Banana, Midjourney, Flux for images, Magnific for upscaling, plus VO, WAN, and Sora for video, all built in. You also get Abacus AI Deep Agent to pretty much do anything. Build full-stack apps, websites, reports with just text prompts, and deploy them on the spot. They have Abacus AI Desktop, which is the brand new coding editor and assistant that lets you vibe code and build production-ready apps. And the kicker? It's just $10 a month, less than one premium model. Head over to chatllm.abacus.ai or click the link below to level up with Chat LLM Teams.
All right, back to system, and we're gonna go to advanced over here. End task by right-clicking. Heck yeah, I love that. That means when you're in Task Manager, you can go to the running tasks, running processes, I should say, and select one of them, and you have end task available right there. A very powerful feature that we used to have, but it went away at some point and became an option. So let's turn that back on. Next is File Explorer. Yes. Show file extensions, of course. Show hidden and system files, yes. Show full path in the title bar, absolutely. Show option to run as a different user. I don't really use that often, but I want the option to be there. And show empty drives. The most important thing is, of course, hidden files, things that start with a period. Developers often use that, like .env files, .git files, and folders as well. And of course, we want to see file extensions too. Here's another thing. Enable long paths. Yes, absolutely. I want that to be not a limiting factor. If I have a deep navigation to some subsystem, subdirectory, I want to make sure that I can get to it and that there is no limit. Remote desktop. Now here's a thing that really is probably my most #1 pet peeve with Windows Home Edition is it doesn't enable remote desktop. I'm going to enable that here and confirm this is Windows Pro, and Windows Pro enables you to use remote desktop, which means I can go from any machine to here, even from a Mac to here, and then be able to connect and view my desktop and control it remotely. Oh, one more thing I forgot. System Advanced. Let's go all the way down here to developer mode. Hey, that sounds like us, right? We should probably turn that on, but what does it do? Well, it turns on a bunch of things in the background. Let's go ahead and say yes for that. For example, you can side load apps. You can run apps in debug mode, device discovery, SSH services. Basically, it's things that you would probably enable later anyway if you're doing certain kinds of development, but this one button just does it for you. Okay, terminal. Let Windows decide. No, I'm going to use Windows Terminal because that's what I prefer. In fact, what I'm going to do is just say terminal here under search, select it, and I'm going to right click and I'm going to pin it to taskbar because I like it to be there and available. All right. Under PowerShell, you have this option, do not turn it on. Change execution policy to allow local PowerShell scripts to run without signing. If you turn this on, it's only gonna affect your account, but we wanna do it globally, and I'm gonna show you how to do that momentarily. Enable sudo, I'm gonna do that because that's a cool little feature. It comes from the world of Unix, actually. Now we're gonna do something dangerous. You can try it with me or you don't have to, okay? If you want to skip this section and not be dangerous, I totally get it. All right. This will allow us to basically execute any kind of program we want from the terminal, and I like to have this on. So I'm gonna go and open up terminal again by shift right clicking and saying run as administrator, yes. And we're gonna do set execution policy. First, let's do a check execution policy. Make sure you're in PowerShell up here and administrator PowerShell. So get execution policy will tell us what we are at right now. You can tell I'm not used to this keyboard. Get execution policy, boom. It says restricted. What that means is if you want to run some kind of program that you just downloaded and you know it's good and you know it's from a good source, it's not going to let you. It's going to give you a big red message. To bypass that, I'm going to say set execution policy on, wow, I'm really terrible at this keyboard. Not used to it at all. Unrestricted, boom. Done. Now if we do get execution policy, now it says unrestricted. I can do a lot of things now that are dangerous, so be careful with this one. Next, we're gonna install Linux inside Windows. Yeah, what the heck is that? Well, it's known as WSL, and it's Windows subsystem for Linux, specifically version 2, which is way better than version 1. It's a virtualized environment. It basically starts a little virtual machine that transparently can live and talk to your Windows files, and from Windows you can talk to your Linux files. It's really cool, actually. And you can run a lot of Linux programs on it. It actually runs a full Linux kernel. So I'm gonna pretend we didn't do anything yet. I'm gonna just go back to the desktop. Sometimes it's fun to restart, especially after uninstalling a bunch of programs on Windows. Just restart to get a fresh desktop. So WSL2 installation is a fully automated process. And we do that by opening up terminal and saying WSL-install, go. Oh, it's going to ask you for permission. I'm going to say yes. And there it goes. Downloading Windows Subsystem for Linux 2.63 and installing it. Requested operation successful. Changes will not be effective until the system is rebooted. And it says it twice just to make sure you see it, I guess. So let's do that. Let's reboot. And once I go into terminal now, on this drop down, oops, it's not there. This happens pretty much every time you install WSL. The first time, it just doesn't appear. So I'm gonna go and say WSL-install one more time. And yes. Okay, now I will restart. Updates are underway. please keep your computer on. I think this is when it actually configures WSL. And I always have to do this twice. I don't know why. So if that happens to you, you run WSL install, it doesn't show up, just do it again and restart and see if it shows up next time. Customizing features for you. You're 100% there. If I was 100% there, wouldn't I just be there instead of seeing that? Anyway, everybody likes to pick on Windows. Let's take a look at terminal. Drop down, it's still not there. What? Really? Yeah, it's still not there. Don't worry, we'll find this. We will find this. Now go to search, WSL, and then WSL settings. This is kind of cool because you can now configure all this stuff. How much memory is allocated to WSL. We're allocating half of what's available in the system. Processor count 14, the swap size, swap file location, a lot of control here, which is pretty cool. File system, networking, optional features, developer. Here you can select custom kernel modules, more advanced stuff over here if you need that. But just wanted to let you know that WSL settings is available for you to mess around with all that. So let's go to launch WSL. And is this going to work for us? Well, it's not working. No install distributions. Well, it was supposed to automatically install Ubuntu for me, but it did not. Let's go with install and then Ubuntu. Boom. Downloading Ubuntu. Maybe this is a new feature where it doesn't automatically install Ubuntu. I don't know. Now it's asking me to create a default Unix user account. I'm gonna go with Alex, set the password, set it again, and there I am. I'm on Linux. Look at that. Now it's still not showing up here in the drop down. It's supposed to be. Let's go to terminal again. Ah, there it is. Now this terminal has the Ubuntu option. So if I want to ever just switch to it immediately, I can just go right here. Boom. Look at that. They even have the color. This has a little intro. I suggest going through this. It's pretty cool if you've never done this before. Just give you a rundown of all the capabilities and what WSL can access. Docker integration, VS Code integration, very cool stuff. Now if we do ls here inside Ubuntu, there's nothing there. This is my home folder basically. pwd, there it is, home Alex. I'm gonna make a directory for my code process, and now I can put all my Linux based stuff inside this code folder. And I'm gonna do the same thing on my Windows device. So I'm gonna open up File Explorer, this PC, Windows, Users, Alex Z. I'm gonna right click here, new folder. This is something Macs don't have, I wish they did. I'm gonna say code, right inside my home folder. And I'm gonna drag this out over here to my favorites so that I have it easily accessible anytime I want. It's gonna be right there. I'm gonna keep all my projects in there, all the Git clones, all the new projects in Visual Studio, everything's gonna go here. Now also notice down here in File Explorer, you can access your Linux environment right here. So Ubuntu, and there's all your files and folders inside Ubuntu. So if I wanted to go home, Alex, hey, look at that, there's my code folder. So basically this is mirrored. If I do ls in code, there's nothing there. But if I create a new, let's say, text document here, it's just gonna be a blank text document. If I do ls now in Ubuntu, there it is, new text document. So you can access all your Ubuntu stuff right from Windows. This is gonna be very handy when you install your IDE like VS Code, but you have your project on Linux and you wanna work on your project from the VS Code installed on Windows. Now we're going to install some developer tools. Yay, we finally got there, oh my gosh. Now, if you go and say Git inside Ubuntu, it's already pre-installed. Git's already there. But in Windows, unfortunately, Git doesn't know what Git is. We need Git. How do you get Git? Well, you get it in one of several different ways, but I'll show you the easiest way. Of course, you can go to the website and say Git for Windows, and if you're comfortable doing that, you can go here and say download and install it. That's fine, but here's the easier way. There is a little program called winget that comes with Windows, and we can install things right from the command line. It's a package manager, essentially. One of the things you can do is just say git install, winget install, and then the package name like this. But what if you don't know the package name? Well, how do we install Git, for example? Is it just winget install Git? Well, in this case, there's probably an alias set up for it. But if you're not sure, you can go winget search Git, and it'll go ahead and search. Well, first it's going to ask you, this is the first time you're using it. Are you sure you're okay using it and you agree to the terms? I'm going to say yes. Look at all these things that have, this might have backfired on me. Oh boy. All these things have Git in it? Really? Yeah, they do. But the first one listed is actually the one we want. And in order to install a program, you would typically use alias, or you can use the actual ID. So git.git is the ID of how you install Git. I'm gonna clear this so we have a little bit more space. So winget install git.git. Boom. There it goes. Easy as pie. Say yes. Is it installed? Really? If I say git, it's not gonna work. But if I restart my terminal and I say git, there it is. Now it works in Windows. And it's gonna work in PowerShell. It's gonna work in command prompt as well. There it is. So Git is now globally installed, but it's not configured. Make sure you don't forget to do this. Git config -- global. You need to provide your username and your email address in order to be able to use Git. So that's going to be user.name, and it's whatever you want to use yourself. I'm going to say Alex Ziskin. And then user.email is going to be my email. So alex@nuvius.com. Boom. Now Git is configured. And that's basically all you need to do to start cloning repos and pushing up repos as well. So we're gonna grab a repo and clone it locally. But first, I have Edge here and it's fine, it's okay. Look at all the stuff that shows up when you go to it, great. But I prefer Chrome because of its superior dev tools, in my opinion. So I'm gonna go to download Chrome and I'm gonna uncheck that box, download Chrome, open file and install it. If you're a web developer, you're gonna really appreciate all the cool technology that's available for you to debug and inspect inside developer tools in Chrome. Plus, it's really easy for me to use Chrome because it has all my preferences from all the machines that I use and I sign in as myself, so it makes it easier. And now that I have Chrome installed, I'm gonna set it as my default browser. So if I click that, it's automatically gonna take me to settings, apps, default apps, and then I'm gonna set Chrome as the default for web applications and HTML and HTML files. All right, github.com/my account. I'm gonna grab this machine tests folder and clone that. So I'm gonna go here and say, I'm gonna go to my code folder and then git clone, paste that, cloning machine test, boom, done. And if you're gonna be using only Linux, WSL, you can do the same thing here. So I'm gonna go to my code folder. I don't need two of them, but I'm just showing you an example. Git clone, boom, done. I think that was faster on the Linux one. I don't know. So now I have machine test, which is just a bunch of code that I have to test systems out for the YouTube channel. Now, if I wanted to edit that code in machine tests, I need a code editor. So let's get Visual Studio Code. One way to do that is the old-fashioned way. Visual Studio Code, you search for that, you go to the site, you download it. That's perfectly fine. You can do it that way. Or you can use, you might have guessed it, winget. I'm gonna search for it. Winget, search VS Code. And VS Code happens to be an alias for Visual Studio Code. And the first thing that comes up is Visual Studio Code. This is the ID. So if you wanted to install it, you say winget install Microsoft.Visual Studio Code. But you can also say winget install VS Code, and that would work too. By the way, Winget has a website, winget.run. You can search everything here as well, all the different packages and software that's available. You can do that from here. So VS Code, and there's some different options for you. Wow, this has even more different options than I thought, huh? And it did not bring up Microsoft.Visual Studio Code. That's interesting. Why didn't it? It did bring up VS Codium. What if I search for Visual Studio Code? Okay, yeah. So what's convenient here is if you find something here, you can just say copy command and then go to the terminal and paste that command. And there it is, the full command. Winget install -e ID Microsoft. You don't need all that to install it, but fine, we'll do it that way. This is way easier if you just say winget install VS Code than going and downloading the package, running the package. So I prefer doing it this way for any kind of software that might be available with winget. Successfully installed. Look at that. VS Code. There it is. Guess what? I'm also going to pin this one to the taskbar. Boom. Now, if I close my terminal and restart it, do I have the code alias? Yes. That's what I wanted to know, because sometimes it doesn't do that. So I'm gonna go to my code folder and do code machine tests and there is my project. Now, besides VS Code, a very popular development tool, it's a full IDE, and that's called Visual Studio. That's where Visual Studio Code gets its name from. Not confusing at all. Visual Studio comes in many different flavors. There is different tiers, and there is a free tier, which is what I use. So I'm gonna go to Visual Studio. It's a full IDE, so it's got a lot of different things included. And there's a brand new version, Visual Studio 2026, which I have not tried yet, but I think I might right now. Get free download. I guess that's all you need to do. There's probably lots of different pages that have that on there. However, there is another way. Winget.run. You probably could have guessed that. If you search for Visual Studio, this does not have the newest 2026 version. This still has the old version. By the way, Community, that's the free one. Enterprise, paid, Professional, paid, Community, free. So if you want the old one, 2022, sounds pretty old by now, right? You can use winget, and if you copy command, there's the full command, Visual Studio 2022 Community Preview. But I want the new one, so I'll grab the installer for that and double click on it, and it's gonna install it. There are some options and workloads that we need to select though, and one of them I highly recommend. So first of all, I do web development, ASP.NET, so I'm gonna check that as the workload. Sometimes I do Azure and AI, but I'm gonna skip that for now. Node.js is an option here, but I would not do Node this way. In fact, probably just skip that one. Python development, same thing. I'll show you how to do that separately. And then there's a bunch of other options here. The one that I suggest you get is this one, desktop development with C++. Yeah, I know, you're probably not gonna be doing that. However, a lot of tools depend on this package being installed, and you might eventually come across a tool that's gonna require it. So if you have the space, I would install it now. I've done it many times. I've come across many packages that require this particular development environment with C++. It gives you other tools like MSVC, Clang, CMake. These are different build tools. I'm gonna click install here, and this is gonna take a little while, not too long. I realized I skipped over why there's a VS Code and a Visual Studio. Visual Studio is the full IDE, and it comes with all the tools like testing, packaging, building, everything all together all at once. Some people call it bloat, some people call it convenience, some people have it as a requirement in their job. VS Code, on the other hand, Visual Studio Code, that's an editor that just has very basic text editing capabilities. But it also has a lot more and more being built into it as time goes on, including the ability to have extensions. There's an ecosystem of extensions that augment your workflow. Whatever you need, you can download an extension for it pretty much, and you can probably reproduce whatever workflow you need that could be in Visual Studio now in Visual Studio Code. Wow, it's really really noisy here. That fan is not happy. Anyway, done installing. Let's have a look at this thing, because I haven't. Wow, that's beautiful. Wow. Skip and add accounts later. Let's do start Visual Studio. I just want to see what this looks like. It's supposed to be really fast and really lighter feeling now, and that was actually pretty fast. Create a new project, Blazor web app. Next. Now here's the location of where it's going to store the repositories. Actually, you remember that code folder? Well, I kind of want it in there now because that's where I want to keep all my code. Next, and you can configure a project. I just want to quickly create it and run it to do some sanity checks. And this has Copilot now, apparently as first-class citizen. There's your Solution Explorer with all the files that were generated by the template. Let's run this. Don't ask me again. Yes, and look at this old dialogue. It's still here. All right, all the old stuff is still there. I'm not seeing much of a difference besides some of the panel layouts and the new logo, but everything else looks kind of the same. Here's the Blazor application, and it seems to work pretty well. And there we go, Visual Studio up and running. Next is Node for JavaScript development. I told you we'll do that separately. Now you could search for Node.js and go over here and say get Node.js and then get Node.js whichever version you want, and then for Windows, and download it. But I would not recommend doing it that way, because oftentimes you come across projects, even in your own projects, you might have different versions of Node that you used, and you want to be able to switch versions of Node easily. Now, there's a couple of different ways of doing that. Not by installing a static version of Node system-wide, that would be bad, because then it would be really hard to switch between versions. There's something called Node Version Manager for Windows, and this will work Well, you need to specify that you want the one for Windows because that's the installer. NVM Windows. And this will let you switch between versions of Node in Windows. However, I prefer to do my Node development inside WSL now. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to show you how to do that. So I'm going to go and search for Node Version Manager, and this is the one I want. It's called NVM. This is pretty frequently maintained. It's an old project that's tried and true, and it's really easy to use and switch between versions of Node once you have this installed. Here's the install and update script. So we're gonna use this right here. I'm gonna copy that command and go to terminal and then pop open Ubuntu, and I'm gonna paste that command in here. Run it. There it is. It's already installed. That was really easy. NVM is how we run it. It's not found, so I need to restart my terminal. NVM. Okay, there it is, NVM. So if I want a certain version of Node now, then I just do the install command. Notice right now if I do node version, it's not found. There is no Node installed. But if I use NVM install, and let's say I want version 24 of Node, I just say 24. Boom. And this installed version 24 of Node. Now if I go Node version 24. Yay! NPM is also there. We can do NPM version 11.6. Now, what if I want to switch my version of Node? This is really cool. We go to NVM, install. I have an old project and I have Node 20 on there. So I just do NVM install 20, and there it is. Now we're on 20. So Node version 20. How cool is that? What if I want to go back to my project with Node 24? Well, now I say NVM use, because I know it's already installed, NVM use 24, and now we're on version 24 of Node. This is really cool, and you should be using Node Version Manager for that. So let's go to my code folder, and I'm gonna create a new directory called node test, cd node test. Oops. And I'm gonna say code, and this opens up Visual Studio Code, allow, and this is the Visual Studio Code that's installed in Windows, so you can see how really convenient and cool that is. Now I'm inside my node test, which is on Linux, but I'm in Windows editing the files. Hello.js, I'm gonna say console log hello semicolon. Yes, every JavaScript line needs to end in a semicolon. This is a known fact by everybody. Pop open our terminal. There's our file. I'm gonna say node hello, boom. It answers me. Node is working, folks. My job here for Node is done, but we're not done yet with everything else we need to do, right? Next is Python. So I can go back to my browser and say I want to install Python, search for that, downloads, and install that, right? No, that is not what we're going to do. Again, there is a way to manage your Python environments. Now, two ways actually. One of them is using Conda, which is a popular tool that's been around for a while, Mini Conda also. And I have a tutorial on how to do that. I'll link to that down below. But now I prefer a different tool called UV, because UV makes things a lot easier and it's fast. So here's the installation for UV. You can search for docs.astral.sh, and there it is. I'm gonna copy that command, and we're gonna go back to our Ubuntu installation, our WSL instance, so I can use Python inside Ubuntu. You can also install Python on Windows if you want to. It's up to you. I'm not gonna show you how to do that here because I prefer doing it inside Linux. So I'm gonna paste that command. That's the installation script for UV, and is done. That was incredibly fast. Now, of course, you need to restart your Ubuntu terminal in order for it to take effect. And if I say UV now, there it is. It's a very small tool, but it does its job really well. Now, I've already created tutorials on how to do this a while ago, how to use UV for members. Members of the channel get extra videos and things like that, but I'll do a quick one for you. Let's say I'm gonna go to my code directory, and I'm gonna do a UV test directory here. What you do is you create a new environment. It's a virtual environment for your project to execute in. And all the dependencies you install for this particular project are going to be all under this directory, which is really cool because then you won't have different versions hanging out in global scope interfering with each other. And this is what we're trying to avoid. And even different versions of Python. Similar story as to what we did and why we did it with Node. UV, venv. And that's really all you need to do to create a new virtual environment. Let me show you. it'll create a new folder called venv and put everything in there, including Python, including all the packages that you might install. But if you want to name it something other than venv, or if you want a different version of Python, you can do something else. Let's remove that folder. Now I have my clean UV test folder again. So we're going to go and do UV venv. Let's give it a name like my proj. I don't know, whatever. And then we're going to specify the version of Python. So I'm going to say Python 3.12. Boom. See how fast that is? That's crazy. Now, in order to activate the environment, all I got to do is say source. Well, it tells you right here. It says activate with. So I'm going to say source, myproj, bin, and then activate. Now you're inside the virtual environment. So it says it right here in parentheses so you don't forget. And if you check the version of Python you have here, it's going to be 3.12. If you want to install a package, you don't do pip install. Instead, you do uv pip install. Then a package is like whatever package you need, like rough. And there it is. It was added very quickly, mind you. By the way, these packages are now cached so that next time you install it, it's going to be even faster. Now, if you want to develop something here, pop this open, VS Code, allow. There's my project. That's the UV folder. Don't mess with that. Create your new files here. Hello.py, and now you're in Python, so let's say print hello Alex, semicolon, no, just kidding, there's no semicolons here. Python hello, and there it is, hello Alex. Now we're running Python code. Oh yeah. So UV is really cool and I do enjoy using it. However, sometimes I still have to go back to Conda depending on what I'm doing and depending on what project I'm working on. Sometimes legacy projects have dependency on Conda. So that's why I'm going to leave the tutorial on how to do that down below. And by the way, if you want to deactivate that environment, that myproj environment, you just say deactivate. Boom. And now you're back to normal. Now you can create a new Python environment if you want and go from there. There's one more pretty popular tool that I use pretty often, Docker. And Docker, there is no Docker version management. Don't worry. So we're just gonna go to the Docker website and do it the old-fashioned way for a change. Actually, let me see if Winget has that. I've never installed Docker through Winget. I'm sure they do. Yeah, there it is. So you could actually install it the old-fashioned way right here. Download Docker Desktop for Windows, AMD 64. That would be my version right there. It's still pretty easy to do it that way. Or you can do it through Winget. You know, for variety's sake, I'm going to do it this way, just with a downloader. Execute that. Yes. Now here, this is why we installed WSL2 first before Docker, because now it's going to use WSL2 instead of Hyper-V, which is good. If we didn't have WSL2 installed, we'd have to go through the process of installing it, and who needs that? We already did it. Press OK, and there it goes. Installation succeeded. Close and restart. And you definitely should restart after installing Docker because it's going to do a bunch of system stuff that you should definitely do. All right, restarted. Docker should be here. And there it is. Oh, it just popped right up. Accept the agreement, of course. Welcome to Docker, work or personal. I'm going to go with personal here. Actually, I'm going to skip this for now and then skip this. Starting Docker engine. Hey, there we go. There's something called Docker Model Runner if you're into machine learning and AI and running chat and agents and things like that. This is actually already installed, so you can use this instead of like Ollama, for example. Ollama is pretty easy to install. I go into it in other videos. I'll link to that down below too. I'm not going to go through that here, but figured I mention this since Docker Desktop already installs the model runner. So here's small 2. Let's pull that one. It is indeed pretty small. We can run that. And now if you had, let's say, a GPU in here, it would use that GPU directly, which is kind of cool. So I'm gonna just interact with it right inside the Docker Desktop window, which is fine. There's a lot more to this, and there it goes. Hello, I'm happy to help. You got a little chat agent right here. And if we take a look at the GPU here, which is Intel graphics, it's sharing the memory, and look at that. So you could run decently sized models here. Not huge, but something up to 16 gigabytes. That happened on the GPU. So Docker Model Runner automatically configured itself to be compatible with the Intel GPU that's available here. Now, one more tool I like to install, which is really cool, and that's called PowerToys. Save this one for last. It's a little bonus. Microsoft PowerToys install Power Toys, you just search for it and click on the install button. This takes you right to GitHub. It is an open source project, which is pretty cool. So I'm gonna get this one, this executable, download it. It's not very big, but it is powerful, and double click on the installer and run it. I agree, install, installation completed, and it comes up, we're good to go. So this has a lot of little functions and features that Windows is kind of missing, and some of these are really useful, like advanced paste, always on top if you want your Windows to kind of stay there, awake if you want to keep your machine awake while you're doing something, a long-running task, for example, color picker, command palette, environmental variables. This makes environmental variables really easy to set up, very useful for dev work, so it just takes you right there. Very cool. So check that out, zoom it, nice. Oh, this one is handy. You ever try to delete a file in Windows and it's like, oh, this file is being used. No, it's not. Come on, I know that it's not. You can go to File Locksmith, find which processes are using that file and do something about it. So that makes it much easier. That's pretty much it. Now you can do other things like clean this up. I hate all this stuff. I'm just gonna remove all this. It's just a mess. Like the Windows Store, Edge, whatever that is. I should know what that is. And this weather, I don't really need the weather there, so I'm gonna go to taskbar settings, widgets, turn that off, task view, turn that off, search box, I'm gonna hide that. Just make it a little bit cleaner and neater. That's pretty much it. That's my setup. I'm just gonna go delete this files now after this video is over. But speaking of Ollama and AI setups, watch this video right here and we'll go through that with you as well. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.